I will also say, I was a little guilty of this. On a sick day, if I wasn't too terribly sick, my parents didn't stay. Every once in a while, I would check and see what was going on with my brother's life. I would.
Snoop around?
Yeah.
Oh.
So we each had like a little lockbox.
Is your brother older?
Younger.
Okay.
Yeah. So we each had a lockbox. So it was our private lockbox.
The lockbox.
Right. So yeah. So I would get into my brother's stuff. I'm like, what the hell? Where did you get a Playboy?
Yeah.
Like, how did that happen?
How to pick up trashy women.
Right.
For sure.
Hey everybody, it's just me today. The boys are out in the world doing interesting and presumably productive things. So this week, we're going to do a bit of a clip show. I dug through the archives and pulled out 4 pretty strong clips that, as far as I know, you've never heard before. It's always fun going back through and listening to these clips and putting the episode together. And I did make one observation. Of all of the Brads I've known in my life, the Benadryl, NyQuil, Zicam, Smith Brothers cough drop Brad might be the funniest of all of them. So this first clip goes back to our January 9th show, 2026. It was called Snow Days, where we talked about what we used to do as kids when school got canceled because of snow. The clip actually starts from our recap at the beginning of the show, where John talks about Doug Alberhasky kind of half kidding that we're all welcome to come back at the last minute on Christmas Eve if we want to see him, because they're always open on Christmas Eve. And John takes him up on it. We also get a little bit of insight into who some of Brad's favorite Iowa City retailers are and why they are his favorite. So I'm going to hit play here and enjoy this clip right along with you. We'll see you on the other side. So, John, I saw you went to John's Grocery. You took Doug up on his offer to come in on Christmas Eve.
I did. I'll tell you what. In the past, I've popped in either Christmas Day or Christmas Eve to buy some beer or some more just for the novelty that it's open, get out of the house. And when we did the pod, he talked about those people that always have the last minute, we stock things for the meal.
Yeah.
Christmas Eve, like 5 o'clock at night, Rebecca drops on me a shopping list to make Christmas morning egg bake and some monkey bread or something like that.
Right.
And I'm like, all right, we're like a block away from the Hy-Vee, but by the time she drops, the Hy-Vee's closed.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay. I believe they said they were open till 8, right? So I went down with an actual shopping list. And, and Doug was fantastic. I know my way around the store pretty well, but a couple things were nook and cranny stuff that Doug had to, identify for me. But I went down and was, I think, the last customer of Christmas Eve, getting ingredients to make egg bake and monkey bread the next day. And they've never really found myself in that position, but true to their word.
That shot of you going out the door was awesome.
I had to take a pic as I left. I was like leaving the Alberhasky family so they could finally have their holiday because I was done.
Yeah, well, we started Christmas Eve local as well. We did, and we've done this a couple times. We've had this tradition of what we call Breakfast Club, which is an early morning ride that stops off at the Pullman, and we have a tipsy pig or two. And John and I decided, Stephanie was working that morning, and I had to get down to Washington for the family Christmas, but the morning was kind of open, and I had some last minute errands I needed to run, and I decided I could do them by bike. Mm-hmm. So I mentioned to John at Pullman that I needed to make a quick run down the street to Herting and Stalker, because the prior day I had been doing shopping locally. And
well, what actually happened, we're sitting, and I assume production day for Christmas vacation, all the things. I thought Brad was going to like one pig, fast breakfast, we're out of here.
Right.
Second pig, and then there's like a dragging of the feet and maybe a third beverage, and then he's like, well, I'm actually, if you don't mind, Herteen doesn't open for another 30 minutes, we can kill a little time or
and
something.
John's like, Herteen, they trust me, they know John at Herteen Stalker.
Oh, and no, he is.
Yeah.
So both he and
Tim
Becky
and I go way back.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to have shopped locally for several things, and I had a little custom piece made up for my girls, and it was going to be a stocking stuff for a little charm as a memory of our dog who passed away this year, and they were all super close, first Christmas without the dog, so I had a little thing customized by Herteen and Soccer, and they needed to. Of course, I go in there and say, "Do you do any custom work?" I'm like, this is like on the 23rd, and they're like, "Yeah, we can, but you'll have to come get it tomorrow." I'm like, "Okay, that works." So we did our our Pullman run, and then we rolled down there. And when I was doing my shopping, they were walking around and handing out little milky little shot glasses of something, and they said, "Hey, do you want some? What's it called?
Dickens English cream.
Dickens English cream." It was the first time I'd ever had it. Delicious.
Yeah.
And so I had a little bit that particular day, and then when I roll in with John, it's like they bring out a keg of it, and
we're English, so they know.
They roll out the red carpet, and I think we had a couple pours of that while John was talking vintage Rolex stories with the owner of the place, and I got delivered my pre-wrapped, very nice little gifts for the kids, and then they sent us on our way with a little like Yoo-hoo sized small chocolate milk thing full of this English cream that's got rum and whiskey and chocolate milk and half
velvet,
and half.
Bacardi, half and half, milk, real Hershey syrup. Tim's very particular, real Hershey syrup.
Right.
And the ingredients are on the little
on it.
bottle.
Yes. Yeah. We'll take a picture and put it up on
we shall. It's great. And that's a great tradition at Hertie. They have that out and are pouring little samples for people as they come through to shop in the holiday season.
And I'm a sucker. Great. Like I'm going to be back shopping there just because that was a cozy thing that they did.
There's
like just to anyone who walked in the door.
3 or 4 places in Iowa City that are still left that still are old school Iowa City. And that's one of them. The men's Ewers is another place that it's just you get super quality customer service. They kind of remember who you are, and if something comes in that they know that you have liked in the past, they don't expect you to buy it, but they let you know that it's there. I mean, it just feels like it feels way different now because nobody does it anymore.
And Hertine is in the Dickens family is to jewelry, obviously, with the Alberhaskys and John's Grocery is to beer and beer history, and it's such a treasure in Iowa City. And like to Brad's point, you walk in there a couple days in advance, and they'll do something personal and custom and knock it out of the park. I mean, we're lucky to have institutions like that in Iowa City.
You brought up Ewers, and I'm going to have to share a story that has nothing to do with Christmas, but it's about like local service. I am, and John might know this story, but we have this annual conference we do in Chicago called the RSNA, and so it's the day before RSNA. It's the day I'm leaving that day, and I needed a suit, and I go into Ewers. I walk down. We were having lunch at Shorts. I walk down to Ewers and I'm just going to do a flyer and see, do they happen to have something off the rack that I can throw on? Well, they did. They had a nice charcoal suit that I was like, perfect, this works, but it needed hemmed.
Yeah.
And so the guy says to me, okay, would you need this hemmed? I'm like, well, I do. And like, well, we have someone who can do that, but I'm like, listen, I'm having lunch with my family right now. I'm leaving for Chicago for this conference in an hour. or maybe it was an hour and a half. I don't know. It was like within a couple hours.
Right.
And the guy looks at me like, all right, well, I think let me make a call. I think, and so no shit, I go in and have my beer and Shorts burger before I'm driving into Chicago.
Slight taper, full break.
Exactly. I roll in. And they had the damn thing ready for me to go. Like, where else can you go in on the same day and have it done? Where else can you go in 2 days before Christmas and say, can you customize something, 3 objects for... Yep, we'll get her done.
Not Kohl's, not JCPenney's, not...
Downtown Iowa City.
Pretty cool.
Boy, I could really go for a sensible bottle of Dickens Holiday Cream Beverage right about now. Now, Brad will be the first to tell you that preparation isn't always his strong suit, but I've got to say, as someone who's spent a lot of time with Brad and been in his orbit, things almost always seem to work out better for him when he plans last minute. I don't know how that happens, but the butter lid always seems to end upright for that guy. Our next segment is probably relatable to any adult child in the Midwest when your parents feel they need to know and discuss what the weather is going to be like or has been like in your local area. Both of my parents will independently text me and let me know when bad weather's headed my way. Now, I know part of it is because they want me to be safe, but there's also another little part of it that they're hoping that I'll text back thanks, which opens the door for maybe another text on how I'm doing and how the kids are doing. And well, how do I know? Because I do the same exact thing to my kids. So let's take a listen to this segment about why Brad would make a terrible rain gauge weather spotter. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And my neighbor, Denny, you know Denny.
Mm-hmm. Denny Frary, he's the one that retired.
Well, yeah, for sure. He retired, but...
Yeah. But like he'll ask me, and Stephanie's dad, when he calls her,
right,
I'm overhearing the conversation,
right,
and usually the first 10 minutes of any conversation that Stephanie has with her dad, has to do with how much rain did you get? Did you check your gauge? So I like felt compelled to get a gauge,
right,
so that like we could give an accurate, like it says on the news what rain you got, but he wants to know, what did your gauge at your property say?
Mm-hmm. Does he have a cell phone?
Yes, it's a flip. He doesn't.
Because I tell you what, you can actually get gauges that you could plug him into so he can see what...
My gauge.
He could see your gauge. He can see, like if Stephanie has any brothers or sisters, he could see their gauges.
I will let my gauge overflow. Like it'll go for weeks before I bother to go dump it, because I don't really care that much. But so the weather, the rainfall, the snow, and the temperature typically takes the first 15 minutes of any phone call. It is such a thing to get into at the start of a conversation.
Next time you take a call from him, just do this. Say, it's the damnedest thing. I got a baker's dozen of snow donuts. And just see what he says.
I will.
John is always looking for an opportunity to bring up snow donuts. So our next clip comes from our Snow Days episode, where a pretty clear line gets drawn between two very different childhood experiences. The snow day, which was something to celebrate, and the sick day, which meant that you were tethered to the couch, no visitors allowed, and staring into the entertainment void from noon until 3 o'clock. After 3 o'clock, the children's programming finally kicked back in. Before 3 o'clock, days of our lives. All right, see you on the other side of this. Well, there's definitely a difference between how you handled a snow day and how you handled a sick day.
For sure. Yeah, I would, there were two critical differences. First and foremost was your friends. Right? On a sick day, you were a lone wolf.
Yeah.
On a snow day, you had friends that reminded with. And then, of course, the other component of it is more often than not on a sick day, you were quote unquote sick and, not up for sledding and snow football and some of those things. So, like, I know we talked about some of the classic daytime TV of our childhood. A sick day was like a heavy game show day. Like, that's when you knew when Super Password was on, The Price is Right. And you were tuned in from, 8 in the morning till noon with each sequential game show. Sick days or snow days, we never committed time to the game shows. It was all about getting the friends together and doing something more or less productive than that. I don't know if you had that same experience.
No, I'd agree with that. I think Price is Right factored into it quite a bit. I'll say the older I got, I would watch soap operas. And it just depended on how sick you were. Like, if you had, pneumonia or something like that, you were kind of drifting in and out of stuff and you couldn't follow it. But if you were lucent, you can kind of follow a storyline. It's funny, when I got into college, I was able to snap right back into some of the storylines of the soap operas because I was sick of my senior year.
Right.
I was like, oh, yeah, no, I know. Victor, come on, man.
Yeah.
So, a couple things there. On a sick day, was there anything that immediately made you feel better than a Price is Right when there was a hot tub on the Showcase Showdown and you saw Barker's Beauties tromping around in the red swimsuits?
You'd be like, I wonder how much a hot tub goes for. Yeah, please get this right, because I'm just interested. Or 2 jet skis.
Yeah. But the other thing you mentioned, so I never got into soap operas. I just never watched one. And so you had that block from 11:30 noon till 3 o'clock. Because once you got to 3 o'clock on a weekday, you could pick up like Munsters or Gilligan's Island or something.
Yeah.
Hogan's Heroes.
But the one thing we had living in Iowa City at that time that was pretty cool was the library channel, like public access library channel.
Sure, right.
That thing on a weekday would have just a number on it you could call and request programming. And one of the things they had were the Iowa football games, but you couldn't like request the entire game. You could only request like one quarter at a time. So on a sick day, once the game shows ran out, you'd inevitably pick up the phone and call that same lady that's probably working the desk at the library. Can I have the first quarter of the Michigan State Iowa game? And then you'd wait, and when it was over, and this phone number came back on the screen, you called again. Can I have the second quarter? And she'd put it on, and you'd watch that. But that was kind of a cool way to kill a sick day afternoon in Iowa City. Anyways, you could watch the Iowa football replays.
And you would just have to get on the phone.
You'd have to beat,
enough.
yeah, right.
Because you had to beat the lady that wanted to watch the 30 minutes of gardening with Bev.
The birding show.
And there was probably one or two ladies that hated it, right? Because that was like their routine. And then, God dang, some whippersnapper called in.
Too slow. Too slow.
We're going to have some tea. I'm looking forward to this afternoon. We're going to have a little tea. And we've made some delightful biscotti.
Right.
And then we're just going to watch that birding show that they have out at the lake.
Yeah, about Orioles.
But another thing is you call the radio stations, right? And request, if you turn the radio on in the afternoon, that was your prime time to get your tunage played back in the day.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Call KRNA.
If there was ever a one of those, the 10th person that calls in type deal, you were really committed when you're at home on a sick day.
I will also say, I was a little guilty of this on a sick day. If I wasn't too terribly sick, my parents didn't stay. Every once in a while, I would check and see what was going on with my brother's life. I would...
snoop around?
Yeah.
Oh.
So we each had like a little lockbox.
Is your brother older?
Younger.
Okay.
Yeah. So we each had a lockbox. So it was our private lockbox.
Right.
Which is, So I would get into my brother's stuff. I'm like, what the hell? Where did you get a Playboy?
Yeah.
Like, how did that happen?
How to pick up trashy women.
Right.
For sure.
Snow day versus sick day. Was there anything worse than being sick on a snow day? Actually, there was. Being sick on a holiday break. If you answered no, go ahead and deduct 1 point. Okay, so our final clip today actually comes from our Saturday night sleepover episode. We drifted a little off topic here and we started talking about high school study halls, which somehow led to Brad describing the moment he realized his high school girlfriend was messing around on him while he was watching the boys' state basketball tournament on public television. Could you imagine the betrayal from half a state away?
And the other thing that makes me think about that is in study hall, I sat across the table from a guy named Chris Hassel. No, not Chris, Jeff, his older brother. And Jeff he went to all the concerts. So like concert t-shirts.
Like Iowa City concerts or everywhere?
Wherever.
Concerts?
He would go.
So he's an older dude.
He was a couple years older than me.
Yeah.
And his parents were very okay with him, taking off and going to see a show in Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, Quad Cities, whatever. And so he was always wearing, it was a prized possession to have a Motley Crue tour shirt or
That Born
Scorpions
in the USA t-shirt was everywhere,
or, all the artists of those days. And then the other thing to do, and I don't know if you guys are into this, but I would watch him just like make artwork on his notebooks of like the Van Halen logo or the Crocus logo or Ozzy Osbourne or whatever it might be. Like all that stuff that you just like hand do. No. Remember those old Trapper Keepers that were like denim covered? They were like a 3-ring binder, and like people would take magic markers and like you just don't see that anymore. But like that's art from the 80s.
Van Halen, that logo, that VH logo, I think that was on every math book you ever got. Middle school and high school. Someone had drawn that in there.
Yeah. I kind of wish I had some of the notebooks that were marked up from those eras.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I had to give a speech at my high school. It's probably been about 10 years ago. We have something called a pep chapel that happens during homecoming. So I kind of talked about some of the stuff that we did, and I talked about those little footballs, that you would make those little triangle footballs, and you would play football at City Hall. Yeah. But it was also a way to send messages across the...
That's the way you passed a note.
Right.
That's the early generation texting.
Right, yeah.
Was writing a note on a lined piece of spiral bound
paper, you'd pull it out and it'd have all the danglies on it.
Yeah.
And you would scribble on it and you'd fold it up. And
yeah. So I mean, during that talk, during this pep chapel, I like flinged it out into the, and the kid caught it. It was a high school kid caught it. And I said, open it up. And he looked at me like, how? Because it was like those things were packed tight.
Yeah.
He finally got it open and read the message to everybody. But it was so foreign to them that, you just didn't text somebody that.
Right.
But yeah.
Slide it in someone's locker. Remember the little vents in a locker? You'd slide it in there and you'd get a little note from somebody.
There was just, everything was so tactile back then. Everything it was physical. I mean, it just, I don't know. You always picked it up, or you could put it somewhere. It wasn't on a phone, and it wasn't digital, and it wasn't something you can erase. And it was something you kept. I mean, I think probably nobody kept a text from 15, 20 years ago, but I'm sure we could probably do a quick survey and people have notes from high school.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You're right.
So,
just a sidebar. The guy I was talking about who had the OPs was a guy named Alan, who was one of Bean's best friends. He moved in, and he's dead now. I don't know what happened. It's kind of a mystery. But Alan was the move-in guy who had the shit. And you were like, who is this guy with the feathered hair and the OP gear? And he thought he was a football player, and he was shitty at sports, but he turned into be like a punk rock kind of party man.
How'd you like to move? That's kind of like the Footloose movie, right? Big city kid moves into a small town, wants to dance.
Exactly. Exactly. He was kind of that guy, and he was good friends with Chris Skeevers.
All roads go back.
Lori's brother.
Oh, Lori's brother, yeah. Which is it, Lori or Larry?
It would be Lori. Jesus. Long story short, after Aaron Bean saves my bacon, takes me out in the alleyway.
Right.
Lori comes and picks me up, and she's like, we gotta get you
away from here.
So she takes me. We drive out by the junior high, and I'm throwing up.
Right.
And I come back. I get suspended from school. My dad kicks me out of school. I'm grounded for 3 months. 3 months. I go. My dad takes me to school. I go in I'm in high school. I'm a sophomore.
Right.
And I'm riding to school with my dad early because he goes in early.
Right.
And when I get home from school, I got to pick up dog poop. I got all these assignments.
Right.
I can't do it.
A good old fashioned grounding, like a legitimate.
No phone calls.
Right.
No nothing.
Yeah.
That particular year, 1986, Washington wins the state title in basketball, goes undefeated, and everyone goes to the state tournament. My ass is grounded.
Oh wow, you got a legitimate grounding.
So I'm watching the state tournament.
Are my kids listening to this? Because this is what Dad grew up in. Yeah, this is a good old fashioned grounding right here.
I'm watching the state tournament on TV, and I'm seeing Lori, my girlfriend, right, gallivanting around with different people.
Dude,
right?
yeah.
And so
half a state away.
I can't remember what was the timing of the dance where I threw up, but anyway, on my birthday, which is April 19th, she comes and tells me she wants to let me know that she's going to go out. She wants to go out with Ben Greiner, who was this kid who was a year ahead of me. He was our 185 pounder, big stud, big.
Right.
And so she's like, I know it's your birthday, and it's also Ben's birthday.
But fuck you.
But I'm going to go out with Ben. I'm like, all right.
Right. What am I going to say? The dude's a wrestler. He's got a panel van. What am I supposed to say?
It was kind of a blessing, but
oh man, that's got to be tough. I mean, to watch your lady on Iowa Public Television, the stands of Vets Memorial,
the March of Champions,
right,
all up and down her backside,
right, wearing his leather jacket. I'm sorry that happened to you, Brad.
Yes.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
That's right.
All right, that's this week's podcast. Thanks for dropping in with us again. John Langland, I think I owe you a birthday beer. All of you take care of each other, all right? We need a little bit of that right now. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.